Welcome to Puddlecast, where we discuss safety, water, environment, and career development topics. Let's jump in.
Okay, for this Catch Basin edition, we're out here on Puget Sound, and it is a record return of pink salmon. So I'm giving that a shot. This is the first time I've ever done this in the salt water. And my arm's getting tired, not from catching fish, but from throwing, so not going real well. But in this Catch Basin, we're going to talk about how to communicate stormwater and the importance of stormwater management to different audiences. And truly, I think you have to change the message between audiences for one, the level of understanding, but two, sort of the purpose behind what you're trying to communicate. So I think we'll start with talking to your employer or talking to your manager, and you have a permit that now says you need to have training or education, or you're going to have to spend money on a permit, or you got inspected by a regulator, and all of a sudden you're spending money on stormwater management. How do you effectively communicate that to people that are going to have to spend money and explain to them the importance of stormwater management and why money needs to be spent and your bottom line is going to be affected by it? So number one, you always have to start with the have to. It's rare that you find volunteerism or altruism in stormwater. It's generally driven by some requirement. It's driven by some permit response or maybe even a citizen group or somebody that's driving the need for you to have to spend the money. And when you have that conversation, you have to be able to explain a couple of things. One, the why. So the why is because the permit says so or a regulator said so. But you also have to explain the consequences. And before you have that conversation, you need to know what the consequences are. And in some cases, the consequences are as simple as, we need to be good stewards. We need to be good neighbors, and we could get a fine, and that fine could be, anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. But more importantly, especially when it comes to stormwater permits, your record keeping and your reporting all goes public. And so the real reputation is, if you are not a good egg and you're not managing your water, there are organized groups that will help you become organized, and they don't really care about the fact that you are in business or how much it costs you. They just want you to fix it or stop doing what you're doing. And then the other risk, and this is a real risk, is your reputational risk. And that is, if you're a contractor that allows a lot of dirty water to come off all your construction projects, you're just not going to do as much work as you thought you were. If you're an industrial site and you're allowing a lot of zinc and copper to come off your site, it's less likely that people are going to, there's even, with social media and such, there's campaigns and things that go out there and say, we're not going to buy products from these folks because they're not good managers and stuff of the environment. So those are real costs, and we need to be able to communicate those. Another group of people that you've got to communicate to is the general public. And this is oftentimes, more and more permits. Even if you're an industrial site or a construction project, there are more requirements in these permits to make sure you're telling the public about what you're doing. So like you might have a sign that says, if you see a spill, report. It's kind of like, the back of the trucks, how's my driving? There's some requirements in these permits that ask permittees to communicate to the public, here, if we have a spill or you don't think something's going right, here's the contact number of the person who wrote the SWIP, or here's the stormwater program manager. But if you're a municipality, that education also is to the public, is sort of to the general public, the average citizen, why they should care about not washing their car off into the city storm drain, why they shouldn't over fertilize their lawn. That's, you're starting to talk about people's domain. You're starting to talk about people's private property, and you're trying to give a consciousness and an awareness to stormwater and their personal activities, which infringes on potentially their rights, how they see it, and rightfully so in a lot of cases. But you're trying to communicate to them why they should care, and oftentimes those conversations have to do with sort of what I'm doing now, right? I live here to fish. I live here because I enjoy fishing, even though I'm not catching anything right now, and it's a little bit windy. You can probably hear the waves in the background, but it's why I live here. It's part of my value system of being where I'm at. So I want to keep this going. And even though it's a record return of salmon, I'm not catching any. So, I want to be able to bring my kids out here and have them start to fish and catch fish. And so that's value to me. And so if I value that, then I need to take measures to protect it. The other group of citizens that they've got to talk to are businesses, and the auto parts store or the auto repair place or the oil change place or the restaurant. And those communications are not just about the why, but they're also making sure that you're communicating the right message to the right group. In other words, you can't go in and talk to an auto change place about pouring fats, oils, and greases down the drain. It's not the same. It's not the right message, and nor do you know that you're communicating that appropriately to where they understand it, because they may not be speaking English, may not be their first language. So, there's the challenge of making sure that you're not only communicating the right message, but you're communicating it into a language that they can understand. So, making sure that gets addressed in public outreach materials, or whatever you're going to use as outreach content for folks. And I guess the final group of folks that I want to talk about today is kids. And, my dad, you've heard me tell the story before about how I got into the stormwater industry. And my dad was in the solid waste industry at the time, and he was trying to communicate recycling and trying to get recycling bought in by people at their homes and separating their wastes. And it started with the kids, and recycling is really changed because kids brought that message home to their parents that, hey, Dad, the can goes in the blue bucket. And that's how recycling really took off. And there's a lot of that conversation that we're having to have right now with stormwater, in that, this message of why it's important and why we need to do it, and why we don't feed the geese at the park, and why we don't wash our car in driveways anymore, oftentimes comes from the kids, and it's the kids' passion that drives that. So they're bringing that home to their parents, and they're talking about it. So that education for kids in school is important, to learn about environmental issues and stormwater being, a major cause of water quality degradation, and how they can get involved. But not only that, but give them opportunities to find a career path, because there are careers open and available in the stormwater industry, and not every one of them requires a 4-year degree. Oftentimes there's a lot of trades opportunities and making sure that they get exposure to that and understanding of the fact that there are opportunities for them, even though they may not go to college, is a huge thing. And this industry keeps growing, it keeps changing, new regulations come online, and there's more stuff to consider and think about, which creates potentially new opportunity for youngsters to latch on to something and find a career path. And frankly, as we learn new things, you can pretty much make your own career path in stormwater. You just make a choice about what it is that you find an interest in, and then you start going after it. So anyway, we just wanted to cover some of the communication challenges, some of the communication considerations, the different groups of people, what you talk to them about, the different messaging that gets involved there. Having a conversation about that and really having a plan before you start that communication is important. Having the right materials, having the right background knowledge, making sure that it's coming from the right place when you say it, and it'll only be effective and resonate if you relate it to the person that you're talking to, and it has real world meaning to them. So, all right, I'm done talking. I'm gonna keep trying to catch one of these stinking slime rockets that are supposed to be running out here, and we'll catch you next time on a Catch Basin. If you need any more information on outreach and education, please visit puddleoutreach.com, and folks there can help you try to find a baseline to launch from in that communication. All right, I'm gonna try to get a fish on here. See y'all.
Nathan's correct. You need to know your audience. Stormwater communication isn't one size fits all. Every audience needs the right message, whether it's employers, businesses, families, or kids. It's about connecting the dots between responsibility and impact. When people understand why stormwater matters, they care enough to act. Thank you for listening to our Puddlecast today. Remember, you can always engage with us in our communities or get info from our blog and resource library at cwtacademy.com. That's cwtacademy.com. Follow us on social media to get the latest information and see what our team of instructors are up to. We hope you tune into the next Puddlecast, where we will discuss more water, safety, environmental, and career development topics. Bye.